doublyblessedmom.com, and I am honored to be in the home of my friend Kate Stutes today, who graciously let me take over her living room so that I could interview my special guest. And you may hear children in the background, and as I always tell you, that's just the life of a mom, and we're prepared at any moment to have to change a diaper or get a glass of water or make a grilled cheese sandwich. So we may have to break for that, but I'm just happy that you're here to join me today. And I'm so honored to have my guest, Renee Vandergriff, with me today. Welcome, Renee.
Thank you.
I have known Renee since she was about 11 years old, and chaperoned a couple of slumber parties for Kate, and we watched movies like Stephen King's It.
And I won't watch clowns anymore. Can't watch it.
No clowns.
No clowns.
And so we're from the same hometown. You live in DeQuincy, Louisiana, and you are married to a high school friend of mine, Terrell, and you're a mom. And tell me a little bit about you and your family and what y'all do.
Okay. Well, I'm a working mom. I'm a nurse. Right now I'm at the school board. Okay. So I get to have summers off with the boys.
That's nice.
Terrell is a special agent. He's a police officer for Union Pacific Railroad.
Wow.
So it's a little different than the regular police stuff that he does, but I have to tell him every day, you're still a cop. You're still a cop. You still wear the uniform.
That's right.
So we're busy constantly with the boys. I have Connor, he's 9, he just turned 9, and Cameron, he is 4, going on 50, I swear, he's so crazy. And then, of course, Caden, which is his twin, who will be celebrating his 2nd heavenly birthday soon, coming up. But they'll be 5 in October.
You and I are moms of twins, and you go through that first 18 months of having to feed 2 babies and the bottles and the just,
Oh, yeah. Double the diapers.
Double the diapers.
Spoon feeding.
Yeah. Yeah, and just trying to attend to both of their needs. So, a mom of twins is, or multiples for that matter, is just a special mom indeed. And I'm saying that because I realize how special that we are now.
Yeah, I feel like it's not a reward, but maybe I should get an award.
Yes.
For it at some point at the end of the day, when going to sleep. I should get a star or something.
Now you mentioned that Caden you'll be celebrating his heavenly birthday. Tell me a little bit about when you lost Caden and how you lost him.
Caden was 2. We had just moved in our new home about 2 weeks prior. So we woke up one day just hanging out. Connor went to school. He was in 2nd grade at the time. And Cameron actually had laid down for a nap, and Caden and I went outside to play in the yard, do some work in the pot plants or something. So we walked outside, and he went to the side of the house where they had been playing with a pile of dirt, and I was tending to some palm plants that were sitting on the doors. And anyway, 5 minutes maybe, I had tended to that, trying to get them to stay up with, bricks and everything. And I went inside real quick and walked immediately out the back door to go grab him, and he wasn't there. So immediately I thought, where'd he go hide? They're at that 2. They're always running around crazy. So I looked everywhere I could think he would be, behind our fence, in the woods next to our house, and I couldn't find him. And it just so happened my mom drove up at that time. I'd grabbed my phone to call her, and I actually had dialed her number, and she drove up, so I canceled it. And she walked in, and I ran out, and that's when I knew that it was real, that he wasn't with me.
Yeah.
And I said, please tell me you have Caden. And she said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. So when she said no, she didn't have him, I started panicking a little more. I told her immediately what had happened. So my mom and dad started looking. Cameron's staying asleep this whole time while we were searching for him. She told me I needed to call Terrell. He was in Beaumont at the time, working, which is odd because at that time of year, he's never out of town. It's usually very close to DeQuincy.
Right.
So I call him, and he's telling me I'll get one of our friends who's a police officer in town to drive by and see if he can see. I'll call Dad and get him to drive around and see if he sees them. Because our neighborhood is a almost closed-in neighborhood. There's only one entrance and exit in
So
the
almost
whole.
like a cul-de-sac or, dead end road.
It's a circle, actually.
Okay.
It's called Amber Circle, and it is a circle. So he couldn't have been too far, and I remember he had a bright yellow shirt on, so I'd be able to see him.
Wow.
So we're looking. We don't see. We even had culverts that we hadn't put in yet for the rest of the yard. They had hidden there. At some point, they were playing hide and seek, and the boys had been in there. I looked in there. They weren't there. So I'm on the phone with Terrell, and he tells me that I need to look in our neighbor's pool. We had our immediate neighbor to our left had a pool, and I remember thinking, I don't want to look in there because he could be in there, and I don't want to find him like that. He said, I'll be on the phone with you, so it's fine. So I walked over and looked, and thank God he wasn't in there. Looked in their shed. He wasn't in their shed. Still panicking, but thinking, okay, he's here somewhere. He's got to be here somewhere. So I noticed my dad had started walking around the corner, looking, other people's houses, seeing if he could find them. So I walked down the street. We had one more neighbor down the street. So as I'm walking, it's just like I feel like it's just surreal. I'm just kind of floating like, why am I seriously having to look for my 2-year-old? This is so embarrassing. I can't believe I've lost my kid.
And about how many minutes or how long had you been looking for him?
It had probably been about 10 minutes at this point. Because we're double checking, going back and forth, checking everything. So as I walk to the second neighbor's home, I noticed that he was outside working. He was on his phone, and he looked up and waved, and I told him, I can't find my boy. One of my twins is missing. And when I said that, his phone dropped, and he ran to his backyard. And at that point, I remembered he has a pool also. So I walk across the yard, and then I see they have some dogs that come running out. Real friendly house dogs. They come running out, and so I kind of picked up the pace and ran to the backyard, and that's when he was doing mouth-to-mouth on Caden. He had wandered his way down 2 houses down and had gotten in their pool and fell in.
And was this a pool that he frequented, or?
No, we hadn't. We had only been there 2 weeks, and we hadn't gotten outside hardly except to play in our yard. So they hadn't been swimming over there ever. He'd never been to that house for sure.
So this wasn't a place that he knew to look for. Was he still alive at that moment, or?
I'd have to say no. I mean, eventually once we got him to the hospital and they worked on him, they were able to get his heart started again.
Okay.
And put a ventilator in him to where he was breathing again. But I could see immediately when he wasn't there. His eyes were closed, but that halfway closed where his eyes were kind of rolled in the back of his head, and his mouth was really blue, real blue.
Now, you're a nurse, so you're used to seeing a lot of different things. How did this affect you, seeing it affecting you personally? Your own son is there, and you're watching this happen. What What was going through your mind?
Every nurse instinct I had flown out. Every mom instinct I had flown out, other than to call 911. That's the only thing I knew to do, is to call 911. In the back of my mind, my mind is telling me what I need to be doing, and I'm just in shock, I guess, complete shock that this is what's going on. Of course, I was hysterical. The typical 911 call that you hear. I would love to get the recording, because the lady had to tell me, ma'am, you're going to have to calm down, be quiet.
So even with all of the medical training that you've had, there's the mom that panics on the inside.
Absolutely.
And you're just grasping at straws. You know, it's not something that you deal with on a daily basis, seeing your child in that position. And you hope you never have to.
Right.
Then when it comes right down to it, you know, that's why I guess other people are around us that are well trained to walk us through the steps.
Yes, thankfully they're there to calm us down and, you know, say, hey, this is what you need to do. And they did. They talked us through what we needed to do.
So at what point, they had him on the ventilator. At what point did you guys have to decide that it was time to let him go?
They did test every few hours to see what his response was, and he wasn't making any signs that any brain activity was going on. So in the state of Louisiana, if there is no brain activity and they can do a scan of some sort and they can see that there's no brain activity other than the physical test they do, then you don't make that call. They have to take him off the ventilator.
I see.
At that point. If there would have been a scan and there had been some activity, that would have been our call. So thank God we didn't have to make that call, because I can't imagine.
Yeah.
24 hours later, they went ahead and took him and did, I guess, like a CAT scan. And I remember the doctor brought us back in a room by ourselves and showed us like the scan, and it has like all kinds of views of his little head, and I can see the shape of him, you know, like he pulled out a book and was showing us what normal would be, what abnormal would be, so we would understand. And then he pulled out his picture, and so immediately I can see that it's him. It's his little silhouette of his little face, of his little forehead, and we could see that there was no activity going on.
Yeah.
No blood at all to the brain. So,
what goes through your mind on the ride home?
It really, I guess it didn't sink in. We were very numb on the way home. We knew we had to go to his parents' house and be with them. They're older. They're not able to get out as much. So they had stayed home. And so we knew we had to go there. And I guess kind of comfort them in a way. And it was nothing. I mean, if there was ever a point in time where nothing's going through your mind, I think that would be one. I mean, we were exhausted.
Sure.
But I just remember thinking, so now what? You know, thinking, what's going to go on from here? Or how do we even go on from here? You know?
Yeah. I think in these situations, some people feel abandoned by God. How did you feel?
I can't say that I felt abandoned, but I did feel, why us? What did I do to deserve this? I didn't do something right. Yeah. I should have went to church more, or, you know, something like that. Of course, I felt like I was being punished for something that I had done.
In the weeks following, the months following, where did you find your strength to get out of bed every morning?
I mean, the natural thing to say would be God. Obviously, He got us. He's kept us. The boys, we had to still go on for the boys. Connor is such a routine person. If he's not in his routine, then life doesn't work. So we knew that we had to keep him on his routine, his schedule, going to school We couldn't let him lay out of school for so long because it would be just as much a headache to get back into the routine. So we kept him missing very minimum school at that point, maybe 3 days. And we got him back up in a routine. We were up. Cameron's a different story because the next few days was the hardest to see them because he's a twin. He's always had Caden since birth, obviously, and they had a very traumatic birth story, very long story, but Caden seemed to carry Cameron along and keep him developmentally where he needed to be. So he was lost for the next few days, and that was one of the hardest things to see, to watch him play and not really know what to do without his partner, his best friend right there with him. So I got him into a preschool. Luckily, there was an opening at one of the local churches. They had opened a preschool where it was just 3 days a week, half days, so kind of perfect for the situation. It gets him out socializing, but I don't have to give him up that long because, of course, I wanted him as close to me as possible.
Right.
But that was a godsend. So we kept him busy and forced him out into the world pretty much. Yeah. But
keeping him busy.
It was what he needed.
Yeah. Now let's go forward a little bit more into that first year anniversary, which we're coming up on 2 years, like you said, like we talked about earlier, to the 1 year anniversary. Do you feel like you had healed quite a bit since then, or healed quite a bit in that 1 year, or did you still have a lot to go once you reached that 1 year anniversary?
When we reached it, I felt that we had healed quite a bit. So much that I felt guilty for reaching that. I felt really guilty for making it a year without him. You know, I should be in bed. I shouldn't be here anymore. It should be me instead of him. I didn't feel like that I owed him more, I guess, to not be so strong, to not get up, because he, was one of our children. One of, know, you don't have favorites, but he was definitely a mama's boy, and he was close to me, and I felt like, he needed that attention as far as me not getting up and going and doing. But we did. We made it a point to, that whole year, we were busy going nonstop with the kids, trying to keep things as normal as possible, which helped healing in itself. But I think the year after, coming up on the second, has been more healing than the first, for sure. Yeah. The first is almost like a big confusion of blurs, and we're just trying to get through, trying to stay above water, pretty much.
Yeah. What point did you look in the mirror and say, I'm going to survive this? I'm going to survive. I'm a survivor.
I don't know. When immediately we knew we were going to have to, we talked about that, I guess, on the way home. And the next few days when we're trying to plan the funeral, and Terrell was so good and did all that. And we would have little moments where it was just us for 2 seconds, and say, we got to get through this. We got to do it for the boys. We have to stay strong for them. And so I knew I could do it. I guess it was a matter of wanting to. Of course, there were days that we didn't want to.
Sure.
We didn't want to do it. We wanted to just pretend nothing else was going on, and we wanted to hang out and, not be.
A lot of couples do not survive losing a child because there's blame, there's guilt, there's self-blame.
Yes.
And I think that it's a wonderful triumph for you guys to have moved beyond feeling guilty and depressed over the fact that you lost your son, but that you are keeping it together for your remaining children, because you realize how important that family unit is.
Right.
And I'm just so amazed by you guys and your story. You are Christians, and not everyone is perfect. We all make mistakes. I'm sure there were days when people looked at you and were like, she looks really depressed and sad now.
I'm sure.
That's just the human side of us coming through. That's just the humanness. And when we let God minister to us and we allow healing to come into our lives, it can be quick. And the feeling of guilt and condemnation, that is not of God.
Right.
And so I love that you guys have honored his memory, and instead of dwelt on being sad and instead you remember the sweet little boy that you had.
Clearly, we have pictures everywhere of all the boys, not just him, but specifically some of him. So he's everywhere.
Yeah.
And he was a twin. So we still have him here.
Yeah.
We never did the identical twin test or anything, but we were told that they were identical from birth. Caden just had so much more weight on him than Cameron did because he was still in his food, pretty much, and he always did, even afterwards. So nobody ever really knew that they were identical, but they are. And so we still have half of him here,
Right.
Cameron is complete opposite of him. And like I told you, we were worried about him, watching him. Those first few days, just disconnected from the world and just lost is what he looked like. And now he's such a vibrant, just ray of sunlight that he never was. He's got Caden's personality now. He's
Really?
Very outgoing. Doesn't meet a stranger. His speech has just grown. There's only so much video of a baby you can have.
Sure.
So we have some fun videos of him. And
Right.
we'll be in the laundry room or something, and we'll hear some TV show on, and he'll laugh, and it's like, oh my gosh, he's here. And it did take a little bit of time to get used to that. That's not him. That's Cameron.
Right.
But now we have that. Now I can still hear his laughter. And
that's comforting. Yeah.
And things that we thought were so neat. After the first year, hearing Cameron's speech just really come out. Things he would say. And it wasn't necessarily what he would say. It was how he said it, like the dynamic in his voice. Something that he couldn't have remembered Caden doing. And we didn't have video of him doing it or anything. And he can say things that sound just like him. And so we just know that it's his twin. He's in there,
He's keeping Caden's memory alive.
Absolutely. Just certain ways he does his head or something. In a certain shot, we can get him. He looks just like him, and it's just like, okay, we just needed to see that. We needed to see him today.
Now, when you go through a tragedy like this, and I've had my own tragedies, I've noticed myself that people tend to treat you a little differently. And how does that make you feel when someone mentions the death of a child or a swimming pool around you, and then maybe they catch themselves? How does that make you feel?
You want people to be normal. I mean, they're going to slip up. They're going to say something ridiculous. I know I have.
Yeah.
So that's all. I mean, I can remember thinking, I just want people to talk to me like I'm normal. Like, share something funny with me. Tell me what
Yes. Mm-hmm.
the people at Walmart had on today, because I need something normal and funny.
Right.
I don't want to hear how sad the plants looked or something.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
that's all I needed. And I mean, I have the weirdest sense of humor, so that is how I deal with situations. I have to, do something. Like, I remember, this is very random, I'm just throwing it out there, but on the way to the hospital, I remember one of the friend who drove me to the hospital, and that in itself was a story. The helicopter landed in her backyard to life flight him. And I remember getting in her vehicle, and we're, obviously it's a serious moment of just prayer and cries. And I mean, we are very serious. And in the back of my mind, I am thinking, why does she have that on? I'm noting it, and I will ask her when this is over.
And did you?
And I did. And she giggled. So
I think we're a product of our hometown, is what I think we are.
absolutely.
You have come through no little thing. It's a big thing, and you seem to be well adjusted. You're only 2 years out.
Mm-hmm.
But time heals all wounds.
It does.
And if you choose
Mm-hmm.
to let it happen, and again, we're not perfect, and we're going to make mistakes, but for the most part, we're humans just relying on God.
Mm-hmm.
And mothers, I think, even more so, because we're given this special care of our children, and we're just taking it one day at a time.
Yeah.
We're doing the best we can. And even though you may have been a parent to Connor before your twins,
Mm-hmm.
these were your first twins, Yes. And to keep everything together all at once is just its own,
Right.
like you said, its own time for reward. Childhood drowning is no joke.
Mm-hmm.
It happens. There are around 750 deaths every single year for children that range in the ages of 0 to 14. And the statistic of those being under 5 years old is more than half. And that's because drowning is a silent event.
Mm-hmm.
They can't cry out for help once their lungs start filling up with water. So what would you tell, now that you've gone through this tragedy, what would you tell parents of small children that have pools in the neighborhood, that have a pool in their own backyard?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to them?
I'd like to say to watch them every moment you can, but in the real world, you
Right.
can't.
Right.
You're constantly battling. I need to let them be independent, but I need to make sure they don't get hurt. But
Right.
I need to let them try something out. So teach them. If I could go back and start training them how to swim, or that first fall in, what to do, kick your
Right.
legs.
Right.
I would definitely do that.
I started my girls this year
Mm-hmm.
in a
I've
swim
read that.
class, and mostly because of how much I was affected by your loss. And I don't think people realize how very real and how quickly it can happen, because water is unforgiving. It's not like walking or jumping or riding a horse,
Right.
or there's a little bit of interaction between an animal there, or even a dog bite, or there's water is unforgiving.
Right.
And so I was spurred and talked to my husband about getting swim lessons for our girls, and it's very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But you realize when you see others go through this situation that in your own way, Renee, you have already ministered to me and my family. Because who's to say that I could be as strong as you in this situation?
Right.
And so a great purpose for this interview was to get awareness out there. Please do what you can to teach your children. Secondly, if you can't find your kids, it's like Terrell told you on the phone, check the swimming
Right.
pools. That's, I've also read check the bathtubs, check the
Right.
toilets, anywhere there's water, check those first. And
you can't help that we're in the South. There's water everywhere.
It's right.
It's
That's
hot.
right.
They want to get in the water.
It is hot.
We're going to find some way to get in the water.
And like you say, ditches that aren't properly drained, then there it could have easily have happened there. I've read where it's happened in 2 feet of water with a pool that was almost completely dry.
Right.
And yours is a story, like I said, that you have already ministered to me through your strength, yours and Terrell's strength, for me to take action. And thank you for that. I thank you from the bottom of my heart and for my girls for making that awareness to me. We don't own a pool, but then neither did you. And so I thank you from the bottom of my heart for that knowledge and that awareness. But also I think that you guys have come through with flying colors, and it may not always be easy.
Right.
For you, there may be days, again, that you have to remind yourself that the hardest days were behind me.
Oh, absolutely. And still things catch us off guard.
Yeah.
Just out of nowhere. And, we're going to have bad days.
This is like anybody living for God. And I've always heard my mom say, everybody's hell's hot, which means everybody finds himself in a situation that is hard for them to deal with. My hell may not be the same as your hell, but we're all going to have to go through something. We're all going to be tried, and it just really depends on how much we are depending on God.
Right.
To do that for us. You are an amazing mom.
Oh, thanks.
You have such a sweet spirit, and I'm so honored that you would be here with me today.
For having me.
I know this was probably a little emotional for you, but
it was okay. I was preparing myself for it.
Well, thank you so much. I always end my interviews with some fun little questions that probably don't matter to anyone but me. But do you like to cook or eat out?
Eat out.
How about dog or cat?
Dog.
What was your weirdest pregnancy craving?
Hot dogs.
Did you heat them up or boil them or roast them? Or it just
really
didn't matter?
It didn't matter.
It really didn't matter.
I just overdid the hot dog thing.
What was one of your favorite books to read to all or any of your boys?
I Love You Forever. It ends odd. It's the one where the son climbs into the mom's house and holds her.
Yeah.
I always thought that ends so weird, but yeah, it was a sweet story.
Yeah. I Love You Forever.
I Like You for Always. As long as I'm living, my baby you'll be.
Yes. What's your happy place? Where do you go when you're stressed?
Oh. Like if I'm stressed and it's a realistic place, Target.
Target.
Without the kids.
Retail therapy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And that's without children.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because,
I thought I could handle that. And then the popcorn goes everywhere. And I love them for having popcorn in the place, but still.
Yeah. It's like Target is not the same.
We had a little trail one time.
And I guess my last question would be, what did your mom do or say when you were younger that got on your nerves so badly, and yet you find yourself doing or saying that same thing today?
She always told me that she hoped I had a child exactly like me. And I don't necessarily have one exactly like me. They're definitely more like their dad, which may be worse. So, I haven't said it yet because we're definitely not to that age yet. I could see myself thinking it though.
You're thinking it. Mm-hmm. You're thinking it. You're putting the thoughts out
Something
there.
my dad always said was, I'm going to give you something to cry about.
Oh, yeah?
I have said that before.
That's awesome.
And I know they're thinking, what?
Yeah.
What is it?
And again, they're not quite old enough, but you'll get there. Yeah. Well, thank you, Renee, for joining me today and sharing your story. And thank you for joining in. Thanks to Kate Stutes for allowing me to rearrange her living room so that we could get all of this lighting and cameras in here. And I hope that you gleaned a lot from this episode. I hope to bring a little more awareness to childhood drowning. Even if your child is 12, 13, 14 years old, you need to teach them about water safety and what to do in cases of distress in the water. I'm Heaven Allen with doublyblessedmom.com. Thank you so much again for joining us. I'm a blessed mom. Are you a blessed mom, Renee?
I am a blessed mom.